Hello everyone, we will be starting at 5:05 p.m. So stay tuned. Now I think we can start. So good evening everyone to all the people present here. Today we'll be discussing at length about what is anxiety and how to befriend it. So I hope everyone is fine because the session is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. First comes the first, we'll be starting with introductions. Myself, Avisha, I am a master's student at Indian Institute of Technology at Kanpur. And welcome my co-host, Sai Patkar. You can wave to people. She's also a master's student here. And further, our first speaker today, Dr. Mala Muralidhar. She's a consultant psychologist who gladly volunteered to help with us in all the mental health awareness sessions and guidance. Then further, we have our panelist, Ms. Jasbir Tadani. She's also a counseling psychologist and co-founder of Mehersum Foundation. Another panelist, Dr. Shashank Tandon. He's a neuroscientist and a former counselor too. So welcome you all. Then further, we have our breathwork facilitators today. Firstly, Arpita Gupta. She's also a clinical psychologist and a former counselor at IIT Kanpur. And then Shrutika, who's a student at IISc Pune. So you'll be meeting them very soon. Let's start with the session. So the main general question which we received from the participants firstly was they had curiosity about what exactly is anxiety, how does it occur, why does it occur, and can we really befriend it? Does it have any positive aspects? So to answer all these doubts and all these questions, now I'll pass on the mic to Dr. Mala and she will gladly answer all your questions. Thank you. Okay. Over to you, Mala ma'am. You're actually not unmuted.
Yeah, I'm audible now?
Yeah.
So, good evening, one and all. And I'm happy to be here with all of you to share some of my experience and insights and, to talk about certain things that keeps bothering all of us every now and then. So, today's topic, as Avisha introduced, is befriending anxiety. Make peace with it. I have put an exclamatory mark there. because befriending anxiety looks a little weird. It is sounding a little, what is this? How do we befriend anxiety? Why should we befriend anxiety? Right? So typically what we think of it is when I'm going through certain things which is supposedly uncomfortable or termed as negative, I should be looking at it as getting rid of it. I want to get away from it, right? But here we are talking something on the other end, that we are talking about befriending anxiety and why. So now let's see what it means. Why are we talking about befriending anxiety? So this is how, this is the design of the workshop or the talk that I'm trying, and it's a discussion. It's just not a talk. I want all of you to, discuss, contribute your opinions, your ideas, your views, so that we get more perspectives to it. It's not that I'm an expert here and I'm going to talk to you and you're all listening to me. It's more of sharing. So that's what we want to design this, and that's how we've designed this. So let's see, just to introduce this concept, why I have talked of befriending anxiety. So just a second, I'm trying to move my slide. Not moving, right? Yeah. So I'm taking you to this slide. Have I ever felt anxious? I just want you to think about it for yourself. If you ask this question to yourself, have I ever felt anxious? So think about one situation that would have made you feel anxious recently. Even sitting here now, I feel a little anxious. There is something that's going on in my stomach twitching a little, grumbling a little. I am feeling anxious. So now even sitting here, some of you might be feeling anxious. It's not something only specific people feel or only some people feel. All of us can feel anxious, and I would want you to understand what are the sensations that you go through. If you can observe yourself, just observe the sensation that happens when you become anxious, when you feel anxious rather, right? So it could be some of this, many of this, or more than this. Each one of us go through our own specific sensations of anxiety. Stomach twitching or grumbling, shortness of breath. I feel difficult to talk when I'm anxious, right? Racing heartbeat. I can hear my own heart racing. I can see that now. If I'm keeping my hands on my chest, I can see my heartbeat. Actually, if you can see that, you can keep your, if you're feeling anxious, you can see that heart is beating, it's racing, sweating. Some people sweat, some people go through some kind of a trembling or shaking of hands and legs, some mild headache, nausea. More than this, okay, you should be able to understand what I feel when I'm anxious. We will come back to this and we will help you understand why I'm talking about this physical sensation. Okay. Now, coming to this understanding, what are the sensations I go through anxiety? Let's understand what is anxiety. Very, very in simple terms, anxiety is our body's response, normal response to stress. It's a normal response to stress. When I'm sitting here and talking to you, I am, this is a stress because I have to, deliver, I have to present, I have to see that everything goes in the way of how I have planned, right? So this is a stress I'm facing, and anxiety is my body's normal response to this stress. It's a very natural, normal thing that can happen to you and me and everybody. Now, we feel whenever our body is going through this anxiety sensations, we feel apprehension or fear. So immediately what I can think of my anxiety symptoms, the mind or the thoughts can automatically shift to, what if I screw it up? What if I'm not able to deliver everything that I want to deliver? What if I forget something? What if I'm not able to be the way I want it to be? So this is how you can also feel apprehensive and a little fearful associated with body sensation or symptoms that we talked, in the previous slide. So our ways of how we look at anxiety is what we can actually look at it as normal that can happen to anybody and everybody. Now, so anxiety is very normal. It is very common. It happens to all of us. If I can ask you, one of you who can tell me that I have not felt anxious ever. I keep asking it to my participants, or when I'm doing workshop to my audience, saying that who has not felt anxious at all? And obviously, all the times I have no one raising their hand. Oh, I've not felt anxious at all, ma'am. Then I think I have to then shift the whole perspective to, okay, then anxiety is something different. We have to, it has to be looked at from a different perspective. So I am sure that there will be no one here who would raise their hand up and say, I have not felt anxious at all in my life, right? So now anxiety is normal. Let's look at it. What makes it a distress? Why do we get scared of anxiety? All of us can go through this. It is normal like breathing. Then why do we get scared of it? Now we are focusing on what makes it a distress. I would look at it as overthinking. When I'm anxious, I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you, but my thoughts are around, it's more focused on what if I go wrong? What if I'm not able to deliver properly? What if I slip? What if I, miss? If I am thinking more towards what if and focus on my sensations and my thoughts are more towards apprehension and fear, and I get into overthinking rather than focusing on my slides, focusing on what I am saying, that makes it a distress. Then I will not be able to deliver even 50% of what I have planned. Right? Racing thoughts are something that we don't have a control on. In a normal, human being, on an average day, there are around 60,000 thoughts that go through a human brain. So what does that mean? We get into so many thoughts on an average day. When we start focusing on the thoughts, which is not helpful, it keeps repeating itself. The thoughts keeps repeating, thoughts keep coming over and over again in a repetitive way. We call it as ruminations. It keeps coming back again and again because we're giving it attention that we need not have to give it. So I get into racing thoughts. More than focusing on what I have to do, my brain, more than 50% is occupied in this. Okay, what is happening? Oh my God, what are the audience thinking about me? They must be thinking that I'm such a miserable doctor. Oh my God, she doesn't even know how to speak. So what happens there? I am missing here, right? And I want to escape from it. I don't want to face it. Then I give a reason, I'm not, just give me a break, or what, I've got some emergency, I need to rush. So I have this urge to say that, no, I just want to escape from it. Because my brain is telling me that there is a catastrophe, there is a disaster, there's a doom impending. So I want to escape from it. So if we look at ourselves in normal situations, many of us tend to make this as a distress. Anxiety can become a distress. And we also, many of the clients or patients that I see, deny anxiety. They don't want to accept that they're anxious. They say that they come to us, but they do not want to say the word anxiety. Because anxious is such a, it becomes so negative, so toxic. It means that I am into some illness or some disorder. So they don't want to say they're anxious. They want to deny it, repress it, and show that normal self. Or they even project the feelings onto the other people. Let's say I am speaking to an audience. Instead of understanding that, okay, I am anxious when I'm speaking, I tend to project it onto the audience and think that, oh, they are laughing at me because they think that I am a fool. Oh, they're making faces because I know that they're not liking my speech. So I tend to project my inadequacies into the world and then read it as real. So I take it as a real threat, not understanding it is my thoughts which is manipulating me to read the world as distorted. Okay, so we tend to give it more than required importance. It actually need not have to be given any importance. Anxiety comes, anxiety goes. But I hold on to it like a leech. I don't let it go because I start attaching meaning, overthinking, get into racing thoughts, wanting to escape from it. So these are all the ways that I make it a distress. And finally, I make it my real self. What is the real self? I tend to believe, I start believing that this is what I am. I am inadequate. I am miserable. I am not in control. I am not enough. I mess up. I tend to give that meaning into myself and make it my real identity. So every situation I go into, this real self that I've perceived because of this threat becomes the thing that's the lens I see the world from. So imagine the way that I'm causing a distortion and so much of a wiring that is being messed up because of constantly perceiving situations from this perspective, right? So broadly looking at the biology of anxiety, why does anxiety happen? A lot of people ask me, is it normal? Why it happens? I mean, is it only me or is it something else that anybody else also can go through? So when we look at it from the evolutionary perspective, our body gets into this fight, flight, or freeze mechanism whenever we are, posed to a danger. We are facing a danger, right? So it is an automatic physiological reaction to an event which activates our sympathetic nervous system. That event, whenever there's a stressful event or an event that is perceived as stressful, it activates our physiological systems. It's a physiological reaction which activates our sympathetic nervous system and triggers an acute stress reaction. A stress reaction is triggered in our body, which it pushes a lot of hormones up, and that makes us ready to kind of either fight or flee or freeze. Now when we look at it from the evolutionary perspective, this was a very important mechanism to deal with a real threat. Our primitive man would have to face this danger every day in life. He had to go to the forest, he had to face wild animals, he had to take that the threat of the danger of life and death because he had to survive. That was his instinctive survival need for a primitive man, which was helpful for him to deal with real life and death situations in life. So this is how it is evolutionary. But now what happens because of this? There's a rush of adrenaline in our body. And this now in our, the normal times that we are in, we are not in the age where we have to face everyday real dangers, where there is a question of life or death. Typically, it's not there for us every day. We are safe. We are in a protected environment. We don't have to face wild animals or danger threat every day. But because of how the body is already used to prepare for any of the stressors, any normal stress, it's overgeneralized. We overgeneralize any normal stresses and perceive it as a threat. Normal stressors like, let's say, getting stuck in traffic or facing an exam, making a presentation, facing an interview. These are all normal stressors, but our brain gives us this false information that it is something which is a danger. And we do not know how to now look at it from the objective perspective. We tend to belong to that evolutionary perspective and then jump into it as a danger. So what we do here, there is an overestimation of danger. There is a risk. Obviously, when you get stuck in traffic, you might get 10 minutes delayed to the meeting, 1 hour delayed to the meeting. It's a risk. Facing exam is also a stress. Obviously, you might do well, you might not do well. But nothing is life and death. Nothing is life and death. So we overestimate the danger and underestimate our coping mechanisms. The way that we look at ourselves is how we feel. I am inadequate. I don't know how to face this. I don't know how to make it work, or I feel that I will mess. So this is how we tend to overgeneralize the normal stress and make it as a perceived threat, which leads to an endless loop of anxiety cycle. So we do not know then how to step out of it and look at it objectively and make a meaning that is helpful, that is functional in our life. So this is how we look at it as the biology of anxiety is something that has to be there because it is evolutionary, but we tend to take it without that, that line of control, that we do not know how to now look at it from the present day perspective. broadly looking at it, when we look at the way that we have basic types of anxiety, so the theory of anxiety operates under broadly three, the assumptions of, that there are three basic types of anxiety. So we look at it as, existential anxiety, moral anxiety, and neurotic anxiety. So it's a continuum of anxiety from normal to a clinical anxiety. So what is existential anxiety here? Existential anxiety here means that this is something which is the pursuit, it's a pursuit to find meaning in life, like fear of death, question of why I'm alive, what is the meaning of life, where does it lead to, what happens after death. And typically we see these questions are asked by a lot of our older generation. People who are older tend to look at life from this kind of existential crisis. Why am I doing that? Okay, what is the meaning of even achieving anything? Okay, everything is done. So what is the purpose of life? So with growing old, this existential crisis is something all of us can go through. And this is important for us to actually pursue answers and find that meaning in life. Like drastic climate changes also can bring up this existential crisis, which is not anticipated, and very difficult political conditions, again, unanticipated. All this can bring us into this existential anxiety. What if? Will I? What is the meaning? How do I have to find meaning in my life? What should I do next? So this is something all of us can go through at certain stages of life as and when we grow older. The next one that I'm looking at it as moral anxiety. What is moral anxiety? Whenever we are in a situation where we are inconsistent with our values, let's say I have a strong value based on being truthful, and in a situation I'm faced in a situation where I have to move away from being truthful. I have to lie for some reason. I have to not say the truth. Then there is a high anxiety that I can feel because it is away from my the basic values I carry. So the situations that can make us feel away from our ideal self, whenever we are moving away from our ideal self that we think is what I have to lead life like, whenever we are going away from it, then this moral anxiety can come up very strongly for a lot of us. Like, let's say I am writing an exam and the paper is very hard and I never copy, but that day I am in a despair and I get an opportunity to get some answers from my friend. There is an opportunity that I get some answers from my friend, but that causes so much of an anxiety that I'm not able to forgive myself for doing it. This is a moral anxiety. The other one is the neurotic anxiety. A lot of the patients that we see in clinical settings come with this neurotic anxiety. Most of them, they have a genetic predisposition. There will be imbalances in the brain chemistry, a trauma that could be a part of their early experiences. It has a lot of symptomatic, they come with a lot of symptoms, and it has to be, the treatment of it has to be treatment oriented. So these are broadly, the basic types of anxiety that we can look at it from the perspective of theory. Now, to understand what are the essential needs for us, we have to understand what kind of anxiety do I face. What is the anxiety that I face? Is it like whenever in certain situation, is it an existential anxiety? Is it a moral anxiety? Is it a neurotic anxiety? And we need to learn how to respond to them appropriately. Very briefly, as example, let's say in existential anxiety, we have to pursue meaning and answers and meaning to the question. A lot of us, even when we look at our, the older generation, they shift to spirituality. They'll most of the time they speak very philosophical language. Why? Because this gives them some kind of a respite, some kind of a soothing from their existential crisis. So this is one of the things that we have to do so that we feel grounded. For moral anxiety, we either change our values. I mean, you have to be able to train yourself. It's okay to lie sometimes. Okay, sometimes I shift away from my values. I should be able to be flexible or change the behaviors, or maybe Behaviors, when it is inconsistent with the values, change the behaviors until both the values and behaviors are in alignment. So you should be able to moderate it and be flexible. Look at it from a perspective of feeling okay about not being okay, and then try to deal with it. For neurotic anxiety, we have to address the underlying causes. What is it? Is it a genetic predisposition, environmental? Where is it coming from? And to develop healthy coping strategies. This is very important for us to understand, because most of the time with neurotic anxiety, what we do, we develop unhealthy or dysfunctional coping mechanisms. So we need to help an individual to understand what is healthy coping mechanisms. So broadly looking at it, anxiety can be, experienced in different ways. There are different manifestations of anxiety: physical, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. Physical, when we talked about like having all the sensations of the body that we explained earlier. Cognitive is where I keep overthinking, I lose focus, I become hyper vigilant. There is memory fogginess, there is catastrophizing, I just jump into that conclusion. Emotional is I always have this impending doom or threat, constant worrying, apprehension, irritability, restlessness, excessive worry, gloomy feel, emotion. So behavioral, I seek perfectionism. I seek reassurance. I keep procrastinating. I don't do things the way I want to do it. I just keep pushing it. I avoid. I am not able to make decisions. So anxiety could be looked at from these four perspectives, and each of us might be feeling one or the other a little higher than the other one. So broadly, before understanding how to cope with it, this is how I would broadly want all of you to understand that these are the ways of how anxiety can operate, and what is it that I am facing it as a part of my experiencing anxiety. Before going to how do we cope, what is it that we have to start thinking about our own anxieties? I have one of my clients, my patients, who was happy to share her experience of anxiety and how she has dealt with it, how she's been dealing with it. And she was happy to come here and share her experience, which I'm very glad that she made time and she's coming here with us, and she wants to talk about her anxiety. So over to Ravina. So I would want Ravina to come over and share whatever she wants to share for the audience here, so that we understand how it is from an if you are able to reflect as to what it is. So
yeah,
I'll stop the sharing. Ravina, do you have slides?
Hi, doctor. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You want to talk, or you want me to stop sharing and you have some slides with you? Or you're talking?
Yeah, I'll just tell a little bit about my experience that I had during
Okay,
therapy.
you can, yeah. Sure. Go ahead, Ravina. So you can put on your video is on, or you're
I mean, I thought I'll just do it without.
Okay, sure. You can go without it. Yeah.
Sure. Hi everyone. I hope you guys are having a great Sunday. I just wanted to come up and speak a little bit about the anxiety disorder that I had. So I had sort of an anxiety issue that I think it was diagnosed a couple of years back. And at that point, I realized that I would need some help. And that's one of the main reasons why I reached out to Dr. Mala Muralidhar. And she helped me a lot to figure out, like healthy coping strategies, etc., that I could use through the years. And I've still been using it. And it has really helped me to come back to that normal life. I sort of have, sort of befriended anxiety. The exact meaning of this whole conference is where I've accepted that anxiety is a part of my life. And there are different ways that can help me feel better. There are different strategies, etc., that I've felt. So I think overall, joining this therapy sessions, etc., have been like a great blessing in my life, and I've learned a lot. I think every time that I still sometimes go for therapy, I feel like it's a great addition, and it makes life easier, and it's a good thing to do overall. So great. I think this is it. I think from my end, doctor.
So good, Ravina. So do you want to talk about what specifically like anxiety that you were facing? I mean, broadly of if there are something that you want to share about
Yeah.
what in anxiety, like what kind of anxiety you were facing.
Yeah. So I think for me, anxiety was more to do with a lot of racing thoughts, and it was also more to do with repetitive thoughts. So, getting the same thing again and again, a recurrence of the same thought a bunch of times. So if you start getting the same thought for about like 10 times or 20 times, you start questioning, like, why am I getting it? What's the reason behind it, etc. And I think through therapy, what I learned was, just to let that thought go. I mean, like doctor suggested in the start, that we get about 60,000 thoughts in a day. And, there can be a bunch of thoughts which are not relevant to us at all. So maybe letting go of these racing thoughts and recurrence of those thoughts is something that I learned.
And Ravina, if you can tell them how initially you're feeling when this racing thought, this restless thoughts would kind of engulf you, even before taking help, even before knowing what it was, how would you feel about yourself? How would you think about this thought? What would it make you get into?
Yeah. So I think initially when I had no idea of why I was getting these racing thoughts, I mean, it was very similar to those physical, traits that we spoke in the start, be it, a heartbeat getting, racing of the heartbeat, or trembling, or feeling like, I would feel like there's a threat or a danger around me, but there would be nothing of that sort. It would just be a thought, but I would feel like, oh God, this thought can do something to me, or, something can happen. So it was a lot of fear, a lot of association of fear, etc. So it was a really scary, fearful sort of a thing.
Yeah. So when you're talking about it, Ravina, obviously the number of the kind of effort that you have put, the duration of how you have tried to deal with it, and how you have taken help adequately to understand what anxiety is and what it means to your present life. So you want to say something about it?
I think that once I understood how this works, why this works this way, and understand that whole concept in a logical manner, it all made a lot of sense to me. And I think once all of that made sense to me, I could deal with it much better. Is once you understand the logical part of it, you're able to deal better. And a lot of people, I feel, don't understand why it happens. Once you understand the why, I think things become easier and overall to manage.
So also I would want to ask you, Ravina, does it mean that you have gotten over anxiety, you have gotten rid of it? How do you look at it?
According to me, the thing that I've majorly learned in therapy is you can never get rid of anxiety. So anxiety is always going to be a part of your life. And you should not look at it as something that you can get rid of. There can be like several things that we get in our life where, which can make us anxious. What we can actually learn is how we can manage it, how we can live with it and manage it, rather than thinking of, oh my God, I should just let go of it, or it should never happen to me again. So that's never going to be a situation, and you're always going to have anxiety, and you just need to find a way to like cope up with it, manage it, be around it. I think one of the examples that you have always given me is like, it's very similar to like having a BP or a sugar, right? You can't get rid of it. It's going to be there, and we just manage it as much as we can.
Thank you, Ravina. Thanks a lot for your time here and for your very useful insights for all of us to understand from a person who has actually dealt with anxiety and has been dealing with it very successfully. And thanks for this, Ravina.
Yeah, thank you so much, doctor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mala, for sharing your thoughts about anxiety and what it is. And thank you to Ravina as well. It takes a lot of courage to share your experience about something that you're dealing with personally. So with that in mind, we can maybe move forward to now the more coping aspect of anxiety and how we can deal with the anxiety, because as Ravina very beautifully put that you can't really get rid of things like this. It's more of learning how to manage to live with it. So we have a little bit of a poll where I will be sharing my screen, and let's see.
Okay, is this visible to everybody? Okay, so what we want you to do is we want you to tell us right now, in like the way you have been experiencing anxiety, how do you deal with it? How do you cope with it? So what you need to do is you need to go to this link, menti.com, and then use this code 3229646, and you can put in your responses here, so they'll be anonymous. They'll just pop up on the screen the when you put them up, and maybe we can take it forward from there. I've also put the link in the chat in case you would just like to directly click the link and go to this page. Taking a break. What seems to be common is talking to somebody, uh, so whether it is a friend or right, and also meditating, uh, watching football, listening to songs, taking a break of some kind. So there's shutting off social media, taking a walk, going outdoors.
It's kind of beautiful. I want to say something. It's kind of beautiful to see how the like diverse it is, right? Like
Yeah.
for everyone, I saw a question where like somebody said meditation doesn't work for me, and you
Hmm.
can see like for someone like watching football can be like really help them like get over anxiety. So yeah, look at how like you already know so many things, but sometimes we forget them. Actually, when we are really anxious, we forget what is it that makes us less anxious. So yeah, this is beautiful. I like there is a stargazing.
Yeah. There is one about cleaning and organizing also I saw somewhere.
Yeah.
as rightly Shashank mentioned, there are so many different ways of how we can, cope with our anxiety. And when we are writing it here, we can actually realize, oh my God, so many people using so many ways to deal with it. And I think, okay, this is the way that I use, but this is something which is very helpful, that all of us do use one or the other ways to deal with it, to make our anxiety not a distressing one. You understand? Yeah. So breathing exercise, listening to music, sleep, talk, talking to a friend, journaling, that's really good.
Yeah.
I think all the mechanisms, I mean, the coping ones that we are using, that we are seeing here, is quite, healthy ones that I'm seeing here. They're all healthy mechanisms. I mean, I'm very happy to see youngsters using so many, healthy mechanisms to deal with anxiety.
And I think, Malav, like we can, like all of them can learn from others' experience, right? Like a simple thing like drinking water can actually help you. Yeah.
Anyone want to speak about it can come out, and you can put your audio, and you can actually want to ask some questions. You can feel free, because this is more of a interactive session that we have designed, we planned for. So you can very well speak when you want to ask something. You can, it helps everyone else also.
So there is a question in the chat. I'll just speak up the question so that we can have a quick discussion about it. So Akshay says, I don't know if this is the right time to share, and I apologize for my haste. I get anxious whenever I have to confront someone. Like I can express myself in a peaceful situation, but I get all flustered in a heated situation. I don't know what to do about that.
So, how many of you can relate to this? Whenever you're in a heated situation, in a tough situation, or difficult confrontations, arguments, or fight, difficult situation. As Akshay is asking here, I get flustered in heated situations. I think, Akshay, what I see, to get flustered in a heated situation is very normal. I mean, all of us can feel that. But when I get flustered, what do I do? Do I not put across my view? Do I stop myself from expressing? Do I kind of escape or avoid and suppress what I have to say? I think that is more important for us to understand. So to get flustered is okay. I can get flustered. You can get flustered. Anybody else here can get flustered in a difficult situation. But do I still do what I'm supposed to be doing? If I'm not agreeing with the other person, I have to put across my view. Do I still do it, even being flustered? I think I want you to think about it.
So, Akshay, along with what Dr. Mala said, I would say, if you are really in a heated situation where you feel like whatever you will say, it will turn out to be just emotional, and like it won't have that impact, and it will make the situation worse, just leave that situation if you can at that moment, and go for a walk, like go to your room. If it's like with family, take some few breaths, like slow breathing, and then come back. Usually, like you can see, as Dr. Mala showed, right, there's a whole physical manifestation to all these situations, like where your heartbeat is increased and your breathing is increased. So go away from that situation, uh, relax a bit, and then try to figure out like what is it that you want to really, what you really want from that other person, uh, so that like how there'll be a resolution to it, right? And then go back to them, and then probably like you will be more calmer. Like don't try to deal with it at that moment.
Can I just add something to this? I mean, so when he's asking this question about how, generally a person notices that they are able to handle things, but it's only during the heated conversations that they get very flustered and they get anxious. it's great advice what Shashank said, that it's good to distance yourself from it, and also after distancing, looking at what you want. Along with that, I want to bring in a perspective, which is that, if you're getting anxious about something, sometimes anxiety is just trying to tell us that whatever is bringing in anxiety is something that's important in our lives. And so when you take a step back, it's also important to reflect on why is it important for you? What is of value here that you're trying to rescue? Otherwise, if something's bringing in anxiety, a very easy way out is to just, get away from that situation and never to return to it. But, if you're holding your fort and if you, despite anxiety, you're trying to do something so that the situation becomes manageable, there's clearly something that's of importance and value here for you, and it's good to just reflect on it, and maybe that will also help you return to that situation with intentions that are clear in terms of what you want out of it and how you can go about it.
Thank you, Arpita ma'am. I think we have some more questions about coping with anxiety, about how to deal with physical manifestations of anxiety. So to that, I would say you can wait for the next half of the session where we'll be specifically covering ways to cope with anxiety. And, we'll talk about different strategies, how to deal with it. So I think we can move to next part of the session, and there we'll pick up the rest of the questions in the chat. Just before that, Rakhi wants to unmute herself and ask a question. So please go ahead, Rakhi. Rakhi, are you there?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah, sure.
Hi. Sorry. Host was supposed to unmute me. It's okay. Being an introvert, I face lots of problem in social gathering. Actually, being it with family, friends, anyone. I have one-on-one relation. I am very good. But when two best friends come together or three best friends come together, I'm unable to cope up with them. Just one by one, one-on-one, I'm okay. And same happens when I present, and I just feel racing of thoughts, trembling voice, like lots of problems. So being as a family, you have to deal with 2-3 people together. You can't be always one on one. And at night I don't get sleep. I all of a sudden I am awake with a strong sense of panicking and the palpitation. I don't know how to deal with that. I have a depression history, and like as an introvert, I want to be in a crowd, but I just hate being in a crowd. I don't know what to do, actually.
So, Rakhi, if uh, if I'm understanding what you're saying, it looks like a part of it looks like social anxiety, that you're not able to face more than two people or a crowd or even some gathering, do a presentation. It makes you feel very anxious. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
And you also shared that you've had a history of depression and anxiety. Does it mean that you have taken any help, any treatment for that?
Yeah, if like from past 10 years I'm on antidepressants pills and kind of sleeping pills kind of thing, but that doesn't help me in coping with the mentally. Actually they just make me numb or kind of feeling, and lots of weight gain, so some physical problems, everything. So it has been very long. Counseling also is not helping very much, actually. So
You have been on therapy also. with
Yeah, yeah.
medications, right?
Yes.
So sadly, you're feeling like it's not helping you much. You're feeling the same thing again and again, and maybe the intensity is also something which is bothering you, right?
Yes. Yeah, very high intensity. Like my voice keep trembling, and I can cry anytime in front of anyone.
Mm, right. I mean, it's not easy. I completely can see that it is distressing. It is making you feel completely, somewhere inadequate and like, crumbling down any minute. It's like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm. So, Rakhi, I mean, I'm happy that you spoke up today. I mean, it's not easy having the way that if, certain issues bother you, you're still able to speak on a platform. You're still able to talk about your issues, which is a very big thing. And it's very brave of you to have spoken up, right?
Yeah.
So, one, Rakhi, I mean, what I would broadly suggest, I know there are many issues that you're going through, and it doesn't come just because of one issue in life. A lot of things that you would have faced in life. I mean, coming up from the growing up years, the childhood, past, certain things you have experienced, certain predispositions that you have, genetic, and the environmental learning that you have had in your life. For whatever reason, certain things has not made you somewhere feel adequate or good enough about yourself. Somewhere the feeling of not being enough might be bothering you for a long time if you look at it,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
So
Self-doubt and self-criticism is
self-doubt,
very high.
exactly. Self-doubt, self-criticism, somewhere not liking the way that I am as a person,
Yes.
isn't it? So, Rakhi, I mean, I would say that, I mean, it is important for you if one therapy approach or one counseling is not helping you, it is important for you to, kind of try other places because we have to help you to deal with the core issues. See, we can give you certain strategies to deal with social anxiety, try to distract or try to think of something positive or try to, rehearse before going into a crowd. So all those things you would have understood, it also maybe, but
Yes.
you're not able to make it work the way you know intellectually about it, right?
True. True.
So we need to, I mean, through therapy, I mean, some of times very sad and unfortunately, medication therapy would not work the way we want it to work. But I think for you to keep trying out, if one approach is not working, to go to a second opinion, to have a second opinion, to see what is it that I'm not getting help for, where is it that I have to start helping myself. So I would want you to relook at therapy. I mean, medications you're doing, but medications is not the cure. Medications can help you symptomatically. It's important in many cases. But with medication, the right kind of approach is very important. Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's how I'm looking at it now. And when you're talking, I would want others to add if they want to say something to what they have listened from you, Rakhi.
So,
Hi, Rakhi.
Hi.
First of all, I really appreciate you for coming up, and it really requires a lot of courage to come up with such honest and genuine expression, and especially when somebody is going through a lot. It's visible that how much you're coping up, and all your energies must be going in just coping, and everyday task must be much difficult for you just to cope up with this anxiety symptoms or how it is going on, where usually people must be doing things in a very easy manner. That simple task must be so much more than you can handle in a usual manner. I just want to I would definitely agree with Dr. Mala what she said, that you should definitely try another approach. Sometimes one approach doesn't work and we need to try another approach. You don't know what works with as well. When we have any physical symptoms, you go to the doctor, it doesn't work. What we try to do, let's try another doctor, let's try another medicine, let's try another approach. Try and do the same thing here also. But at the same time, I would like to share another thing, a perception which might help you. As you said that you're an introvert, and then you said that now sometimes the situation requires to be in a crowd or interact with a crowd, just sometimes just try and imagine yourself as a 4 years old Rakhi. And let's say the elder one is the present age one is saying that, oh, you have to be in a crowd, you have to talk to people. And that 4 years old is saying that, but no, I'm scared. What will happen if you force that 4 years kid in the crowd? The kid will cry. No, the kid will say in a different manner, maybe shout, scream, get scared, and will be more frightened next time, even if looking at the people. Forget about next time pushing, but even looking at the people, the kid will be scared that, oh my God, I might have to talk, I might have to be with them. And imagine the present age Rakhi is forcing that kid to entertain that crowd or to engage with them in a meaningful conversation or constructive conversation, saying that, oh, you have to talk, but you have to talk. How will that kid feel? That's exactly your inner self is feeling right now. Just try and see your inner self as 3 or 4 year old kid who needs nurturing right now. And that kid right now is not comfortable picking up these battles and may not want to take these battles ever. For example, if I am introvert, I'm introvert. I don't want to go into the social situation. But yes, where it is stopping my growth, I'm not talking about entertaining people, but if I find out, if you find it stopping your, it's becoming an obstacle in your growth or very necessary steps in life, then you can handhold that kid, that child, to step up gradually and let that kid take this next step with that own space. Okay, I want to go gradually. Maybe this step today, maybe next step tomorrow, maybe after a week, but not at a time. There will be people who will say, oh, this kid is so slow. That's okay. You have to protect that kid and saying, yes, okay, I have my own pace. Keep on trying this thing. By doing this, you'll be more with yourself and less with external world who's forcing you to come out of your comfort zone at a stretch, which is not possible actually. So maybe it helps. Thank you, Rakhi.
Thank you.
So Rakhi, I just want to, this was a great example by Dr. Jasbir. I was kind of like that. Like I was very nervous. I used to be very nervous in social situations as a teenager. And I think what, as Dr. Jasbir said, right, like the gradual thing, it really helps because, okay, you're very anxious and you avoid that social situation. It makes you validate that thought that, okay, I cannot go into social situations. Now, if you gradually go into, so, okay, and I liked what you said that you have some good, really good friends. It's just that when there are 2 or 3 friends, you get sort of flustered. So go in a situation where, okay, maybe 3 people are there, or then increase it. So what you realize is you went into a situation where 3 people were there and it was not as bad as you thought it will turn out to be. So try to journal that, try to remember that the next time. And so, yeah, these small steps, as Dr. Jasbir was saying, would probably help over time.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rakhi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, everyone. We'll pick up rest of the questions after discussing coping with anxiety. So hopefully some of your questions will get answered during this session. So over to you, Malamam.
Yeah. I think it's been very overwhelming to see so many questions, so many, sharing and wanting to understand how to deal and what is it that we are trying to look at it as how to deal with anxiety and what is it that I have to do. So to answer some of the questions, I have tried to plan certain ways of looking at anxiety. How do we have to look at anxiety from the lens of understanding and awareness more than from the lens of threat or danger? Now, broadly looking at, there's an anxiety cycle we look at from the perspective of a theory of anxiety. Now, any trigger that we can get into, trigger could be an event, it could be a thought, it could be a feeling. Like earlier when we have discussed about how does it make me anxious, what is anxiety for me, any situation can be an anxious one, like how Raki told that, meeting even more than 2 friends can make her become anxious. No, it can be a trigger. Why it becomes a trigger? Because there are certain thoughts around anxiety that I go through. So what are the thoughts that I go through? It could be a worrying thought. It could be a catastrophizing thought. It could be an obsessive thought. It could be self-doubt. So thoughts could be around why, what is it, what if, I don't know, I cannot, I feel bad, I feel like I'm inadequate, I feel I'm miserable, I don't know if I'll be able to hold a conversation, I don't know if I'll be liked. A lot of thoughts could be triggered by anything that is perceived as a stress, any event. Now, when these thoughts are getting whatever importance that we are giving to it more than what is required, that translates into an anxiety or a stress-induced reaction, which could be the physical sensations that we discussed about, that chest tightness, sore stomach, or shaking, or nausea, or feeling very, dizzy. Anything that makes us feel like, oh my God, I am collapsing any moment. I don't like this feeling. People can find out that I'm shivering. People can find out that my voice is trembling. This again leads to the next level of catastrophizing thoughts. People will think that I'm not somewhere okay, or I'm so weak. So this is an unending cycle. Then what we typically do, we use certain coping mechanisms to get rid of this anxiety. Coping mechanisms could be anything like that is immediately available without knowing whether it is healthy or unhealthy. It could be, we see a lot of, clients coming to us with this, having, depending on substances, depending on alcohol, smoking, to relieve anxiety, relieve stress. We also can get into over-analyzing, to think about these thoughts more than what is required. So over-analyzing is thinking about the thoughts. If my thought is telling, I am feeling anxious, the over-analyzing part of you tells you, why am I feeling anxious? What will people think about me? What should I do now? How should I come out of it? So thoughts cannot be left as thoughts. If I think that, okay, I'm anxious, I'm feeling uncomfortable, I cannot leave the thought at the thought level. I have to come to this over-analyzing, double checking. I keep checking for my symptoms. I keep checking for my sensations. I keep checking whether my body, the symptoms or sensations are seen outside. I become hyper vigilant. Then I start also maybe seeking reassurances. I keep asking friends, is this okay? Is this, am I looking okay? Or is this normal? What is happening? I mean, I want people to tell me that I'm okay. So many of the times the coping mechanism we see when people come to us are very weak or dysfunctional or sometimes unhealthy also. So now this coping mechanism can again make you feel overwhelmed, like you want to escape, because the coping mechanisms are very temporary. It immediately makes you feel, okay, fine, I'm away from it, but it is temporary. So you want to escape, you get easily irritated, angry, you get into sadness or guilt, which again can lead you to a next trigger very easily. The next time you get into the similar situation, you feel heightened sensation, heightened feelings, heightened thoughts, elevated thoughts. So this becomes an unending cycle. Now, when we look at again the vicious cycle, how we get trapped. Whenever I'm anxious, like when we talked about the anxiety cycle, whenever I'm anxious, immediately there is an increased scanning for danger. I shift my focus onto my body, my sensation, my immediate world, what they are thinking about me. Most of the time, my physical symptoms intensify when I'm anxious. That is when I'm scanning for danger and I focus all the energy onto myself, the physical sensations intensify. And all the attention from the surrounding, I shift it to myself. I kind of do not understand, okay, what am I doing here? Should I enjoy? Should I experience what I'm doing? So everything narrows down and I bring my attention to myself and my physical symptoms. Now, this increases the perception of danger, because I know that, oh my God, any moment I'm going to collapse because this is going out of control. The moment you start scanning for danger, the perception of threat is heightened. So obviously you're not going to feel better about it. You have to escape and avoid. So I tend to escape or avoid, like, I want to avoid the meeting. I want to come away from my friends, gathering. I just want to tell them, I'll tell them that, I need a break or I'm feeling not okay, I'll just go away. Immediately that gives you a short-term relief. But in the longer term, in any next event, next trigger, it increases the physical symptoms of anxiety, you get into more worry, you lose confidence about your coping mechanisms, and you increasingly use safety behaviors. Safety behaviors is where I escape or avoid and I try to not face that situation. So this is the vicious cycle of anxiety I can get into whenever I do not know how to deal with it in the right way. So I keep getting into this negative vicious cycle, which keeps happening all through until unless I know where to break it. Now, for people who come to take help from the therapy perspective, we help them understand what is their vicious cycle, how are they getting stuck in anxiety, and broadly, I'm just showing it in a very broad way, we help to reverse this vicious cycle of anxiety. How? Confronting your feared situation, like how we look at as any anxiety can make us look at any normal situation as a threat. Even when we discuss, even meeting few friends can be perceived as a threat because of the way I think about myself in that situation. So in therapy, or when we try to help individuals, we help them to understand that you face the situation, go through whatever you're going through without seeking safety behaviors. You don't have to avoid, you don't escape. Go through your sensations, go through your symptoms, go through the intensity of your feeling, but still don't run away from the situation. Be there, be grounded, be there, face it. Now, when you do that, there's a short-term increase in anxiety. When you actually face the situation, in spite of feeling fearful, when you use the right techniques to face the situation, instantly you will see a short-term increase in anxiety. The anxiety peak goes up. Then, when you tolerate this anxiety and still be grounded, still keep doing what you're doing, you will automatically see that there's a decrease in this physical symptoms. Whatever you're thinking of the physical, when we give it attention, the physical symptoms exaggerate. When we start tolerating anxiety, still face the situation, the physical symptoms by itself decreases on its own without you doing anything, and your attention towards the physical symptoms will decrease. So using the right coping mechanisms, the anxiety reduces to a manageable level. That automatically increases the belief in the ability to control your own response in the next situation, because you have confronted it, because you have stood with your anxiety, you have tolerated your anxiety, your belief in yourself increases, which makes you control your responses, which makes you think that, okay, this is how I'm going to deal with it next time. Your self-efficacy beliefs, your own, trust in yourself, hope in yourself, of handhold, individuals to understand that anxiety is something that you make a meaning of it within yourself. But if you actually look at it the way it has to be looked at, it is something that we can very well learn and unlearn our dysfunctional, ways of associating with anxiety. Now, here I'm just showing you an anxiety graph where when you look at the peak, the performance, the continuum and the anxiety arousal, in the graph, when anxiety has to be at a particular level for your performance to be at the optimal level. When the anxiety is too less, when you're too relaxed, when you're not anxious at all, you're not sufficiently motivated, which means that the anxiety has to be there to a certain level for you to be motivated, which means that anxiety is an important thing that we need to understand, which helps us to get there. So anxiety has to increase for you to go to your optimal performance, right? But when the anxiety is something that we focus more on, not our performance, then when it gets too, when you dwell on anxiety too much, when it becomes too anxious, then you get distracted by anxiety symptoms. That is when your performance drops. So which means that for me to look at anxiety as a part of getting to my performance, to my optimal level, but not to dwell on anxiety, so that where anxiety holds a large part of my identity, I just give in to anxiety, then obviously my performance drops like in this peak. And when I'm like, when the anxiety, I keep on using the coping mechanisms that is not helpful, anxiety becomes so high that I can't focus on the task. So a lot of people who come to us come with this lot of distraction, not able to focus, not able to concentrate, They feel that they're just not able to do what they're doing, because here in this anxiety, the extent of anxiety arousal they allow themselves to go through is so high that they do not know how to use it for their performance, but it goes down to the place of losing focus and attention, and then you feel that anxiety is gripping you, and you are not working on the anxiety, but you succumb to anxiety. So this is something that I would all want you to look at, because to understand which is this place for me, how am I allowing myself to be here rather than slip into this highly anxious mode and lose my focus on whatever I have to do. So what I would want to kind of help you all look at is where there is a response created by Barry McDonough. It's called as DARE. Okay, it's a 4-step approach to manage anxiety. So what does this DARE teach us? DARE is a approach or a response that is being created, which is a very new and a easy way to break free from anxiety and panic attacks. And we use this typically with a lot of our patients. So DARE, that is D is diffuse, A is allow, R is run toward, E is engage. So DARE aims to change the way we approach anxiety and making the feeling more manageable. So what in all these slides, in all these discussions and talks that we are trying to help you is, anxiety is what you have to manage. Anxiety is not what you have to get rid of, right? So this DARE approach teaches us to manage anxiety by using DARE in the right way. So broadly, let us look at how to use this DARE, the DARE approach, in our everyday life. Okay, so what is diffuse? Diffuse is, you understand the term diffuse. So what is diffuse? Let's say you diffuse a critical situation by using the right method. Like for example, if you think of, what if I lose my job? By challenging this anxiety thoughts, when using this diffuse method, I diffuse this thoughts using so what. So whenever you are facing a challenging thought, a stressful thought, or a anxiety thought, or a distressing thought, when you think of diffuse, you can, instead of what if my friends laugh at me, what if I kind of make them feel that I'm not good, or what if they kind of make an opinion of me. With this kind of thought, if I use so what instead of what if. So what if they find that I'm funny? So what if they feel that I'm not good enough? That is where you're trying to challenge the anxiety thoughts and not succumb to it, but to look at it eye to eye and tell the thought that I am not scared of you. So it diffuses a very, very strong approach for me to actually look at my thought as a thought, not give it what it is asking me to give. My anxiety thought will be asking me to give a lot of attention, but I am giving it something which is not, which doesn't intensify the thought, but it only makes me feel more strong and more powerful. So D is diffuse. Let's say next is A. What is A here? A is allow and accept. So I accept and allow this anxious feeling. If you're able to identify your feelings as anxiety, and if I'm able to say, I allow my anxiety to be there, rather than wanting to get out of it. This is something that we teach our clients or our patients through the therapy approach, that try to go through the anxiety and accept it as normal, and use the techniques like how you diffuse it, how you look at it eye to eye, acknowledge it. Don't try to suppress it. Don't try to push it down. Don't try to project it to the world. Accept it, acknowledge that this is anxiety, and breathe through it, go through it. Comfortable with being uncomfortable. So that's something that we need to understand. It's okay not to be okay. Comfortable with being uncomfortable. If I'm trying to use this as my way of understanding of myself, this is something that can help all of us to face anxiety, but not succumb to anxiety. The next one is run toward. What is run toward? It is confronting your fears. I'm excited by this feeling. If you think of anxiety as a feeling that you want to experience, you're excited. think of sitting on in a roller coaster ride. Okay. Why are you sitting? I mean, it is giving you so much of a, the body sensations, the pit feeling in the stomach. You feel so, the feeling makes you feel so scared. But still you sit on a roller coaster ride. 1 second, just hold on. But still you sit on a roller coaster ride. Why? Because you want to experience this feeling. Even if the feeling is giving you so much of fear, so much of sensations in your body, but you want to experience it. That's why you're sitting on a roller coaster ride. This is something that you can tell yourself. I'm excited by this feeling. Whenever I'm anxious, I will run toward anxiety. That is, I will confront fears. If I'm anxious about, like, say, taking an exam or meeting friends or facing an interview, I will not avoid or reduce my approach to that event, but I will go there, making it a deliberate effort to face it. So this statement, I'm excited by this feeling, will change the way your brain and body respond to anxiety. If you're taking it as a challenge and then looking at it without feeling that it's something that is leading you into a pit. If you are able to look at it as much as shifting to a positive perspective, I'm taking anxiety from the way of how I learn certain things from anxiety rather than making it as my threat to my existence. And this breaks the illusion of threat. We will be on an illusion. Okay, my friends will make an opinion of me, or I will fail in an interview and I will never get any jobs, or I will mess up in the presentation and people will start laughing at me. So this is an illusion. If I'm trying to face it and actually confront my fears and run towards whatever anxiety, 9 on 10 times I would say it is an illusion. This is how your brain is making your stories. It is a narrative that is given by your brain, but it might not at all be true. So this is how you have to start getting confidence to run toward it rather than using the approaches of avoidance or withdrawal or escape. So this is the R in the dare. Finally, it is E, engage. What is engage? Initially, I mean, I think the poll that we got from the participants, initially we find a lot of distracting activity to engage in the present moment. So when we are running toward, we have to engage ourselves in the activity. We cannot be focusing on my feelings, on whatever the threat perceptions or the sensations. We will find a distracting activity. When I'm feeling very anxious, maybe initially what all the number of activities that you gave me, that I talk to my friend, I go out for a walk, or I do breathing, I watch something good, I listen to music. All these are distracting activities, which is good initially to engage in the present. What we help to go to the next level is shift to an engaging task. What is an engaging task? Let's say I'm working on a presentation. Immediately, I feel very anxious because I think that, okay, my presentation is not up to the mark. This is something that I'm not able to do. Now, initially, to deal with anxiety, it is easy and it is good that I find a distracting activity, like, listening to some music, taking a break, going out for a walk, talking to a friend. That is good. But that cannot be the long-term way of, dealing with anxiety. What we help our clients or our people who come to us is where we help them to engage in a task. Let's say I'm doing a presentation, I'm sitting here and I'm experiencing anxiety. I will try to engage in the task that I'm doing, like completing that task, not getting away and distracting from that task. Try to push myself to do whatever I'm doing, not to use distraction as a long-term coping mechanism. If I'm talking to somebody, I'll keep talking. If I'm working on the presentation, if I'm doing a presentation, I'll keep doing it. If I'm facing an interview, or if I'm about to face an interview, I will face that anxiety and still go to the interview, being there mindfully and engaging in that task completely. So with practice, we can get into more engaging activities rather than distracting activities. Engaging is continue to do whatever you are doing in the present. right? Continue doing whatever you're doing rather than going away from that, from that activity and distracting yourself to something else to reduce anxiety. Initially, that is a good thing. But as and when you start dealing with anxiety, we help people to engage in an activity rather than distract. So I think this is the E that we are talking about. So what I would want to end, I mean, you might have a lot of questions on this. I'm open to, whatever, giving clarifications or answering anything you want to ask on this there, or anything you want to ask. So this is how I look at it. Although anxiety is a part of life, never let it control you. That is, you have your controls, you have the mechanisms to work on it, be with it, and you deal with it the way it is helpful to you, not control you. So here, taking a break, I will pass this to the breathwork facilitators. So for us all to understand, to deal with anxiety, to look at anxiety, breathing is something that we have to experience. I think it's one of the greatest pleasures in life. So over to the next section.
Yeah, thank you, Mala ma'am. I think Arpita ma'am will take it from here and introduce box breathing to us. Yeah.
Thank you, Mala. Thank you, Abhisha. We've talked a lot about what anxiety does to us and what we should be doing to befriend it and not be scared of it. One of the ways that is very close to body, and one of the ways that can help you or that can help us sort of be more calm and be more comfortable in our bodies is something that every one of us do, and that's breathing. So I've trained as a clinical psychologist and I've been working as a therapist for very long. But I think since the pandemic started, I also needed to, be able to stay calm and, support other people in their efforts to bring calmness back in their lives. And so I started exploring a lot of body work, and breath work is something that I came across just 2 months back. And I did a workshop with a facilitator from Canada, and it was so exciting to see how your body responds differently when you're breathing a little different, and how your thoughts and your emotions look different when you're breathing different. So I shared it with our psyche, our group here, and we all did a little bit of a course on breathing. And there's Shrutika also here with me, who's facilitating, who's part of this breathwork facilitation, and she'll also share her experience with box breathing eventually. But what we want to do, or what we want you all to experience today is a type of breathing which is called box breathing. And it's called box breathing because so you take a breath for a specific amount of time, then you take a pause, and then you breathe out, and then you take a pause again, almost like making a square. And so if you look at the screen, it says that there are 5 steps to it, where in this, and before we get into step 1, I want all of us to get a little ready for this breath work. So if you're standing, please find a place and sit down. If you're surrounded by people, find a place which does not have a lot of people. If you're sitting on a chair, it's sometimes when we sit down to practice breathing, one of the first thought that comes to a lot of people is what to do with our hands. Where should they go? What to do with it? If you're sitting on a chair, it's a good idea to keep both your hands in your lap. If you're sitting with your legs folded, it's a good idea to put both your hands on your knees. Now, how does box breathing work is that in the first step, you have to inhale through your through your nose, and I'll be showing a GIF which will do the counting for us. So when you inhale through your nose, you let the air fill in your lungs, and if possible, also your stomach as much as possible. Then you do it for 4 seconds. And then for the next 4 seconds, you have to hold that breath in. And once we hold it for 4 seconds, we're going to exhale out either through our mouth or through our nose, however is it comfortable for you. We'll do that exhalation for 4 seconds, and then we'll again hold that, hold that emptiness of our lungs and emptiness of our stomach for 4 seconds, and then we'll repeat the cycle. So what this does, or what box breathing is known to help with, is finding calm. It can help you find focus. In the earlier slides, Dr. Mala talked about the fight, flight, and freeze response that our body or our autonomic nervous system engages in when it perceives threat. Box breathing helps us disengage with that fight, flight, freeze response. And the best part is that it's easy to remember. You can do it anywhere, whether you're alone in your room or you're out surrounded by a lot of people. Once you've practiced it enough, you'll be able to do it anywhere. So if all of you are ready, I'm going to change the slide. And as soon as the slide changes, the counting would start. So get comfortable in your seats. And we're going to start with an inhale with the counting. Hold the inhale, and then you exhale. Breathe out. Breathe in it, and breathe in again. Breathe. And breathe out. Okay. Breathe in. This is the last cycle that we do. And as we've done that, I want all of us to take a moment and notice our bodies. Notice how focusing on the breath makes us be in a state where things pulling us in different directions have a little less influence on us, maybe. And if anybody of you would like to share their experience while doing it, could be something new that you notice while breathing this way, or it could be something that you struggled with, maybe holding the breath after you took a breath in or when you exhale. And that's also very normal when you're doing it for the first time. So I would really encourage people to share. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to ask Shrutika to share her experience of, breathing in this square manner, in this box manner, and how has it been having box breathing as something that she's involved in her life.
Thank you, Arpita. Yeah, hello everyone. So, like Arpita mentioned, some of us were introduced to box breathing by the course that Arpita took, and then we did it in our psyche, and it was very nice to explore it. So basically, I would like to, before I go into sharing, I would like to start with what Arpita ended with. What was the experience when we did it right now, right? So I noticed every time I do it, even now I learned something different. I realized that my focus was more on the spine, and it was like I could focus and concentrate on the areas where slowly I could feel, okay, some areas feel like pain, and then there is release of pain, and then it feels calming at the end. So this is something I noticed today, and it's nice that like even though if you will do it for so long, there is something new that one can learn. So moving on to my experience with box breathing. So like we all saw, it's so easy, right? It's so easy and quick, and one of the we can do it anywhere. And I realized that the best part was that I could couple it with anything that I'm doing in the day. And so the challenging aspect of it is sometimes I do forget when I'm in the moment, and when I'm anxious, I do forget that, okay, uh, this tool exists. So currently I've been practicing it in the morning when I do my other exercises. And so typical um, pranayam and breathing exercises. But since this is so easy, I could couple it with um, the other normal exercises. And to add on to this, I would like to share one of my personal experiences. So I have PCOD, that is polycystic ovarian disorder, which is very common in girls these days. Like 1 in every 3 girls has it, and it's irregular periods is like has been so part and normal routine of all the girls these days. So that's why I was given some medications. And the breathing, it's a lifestyle disorder. So when you sleep, how do you manage your all other activities throughout the day largely determines how it manifests in your body. So that's why when I was doing all this breathing techniques, and when I learned this, so like I was saying, I did particular asanas, and box breathing is something that can be coupled. Anyways, we do normal breathing, like inhalation and exhalation in other breathing, in other exercises as well in yoga. So I thought, why not mix the two? So I count every time, not just normal inhalation exhalation, I couple it with box breathing. And I think that's a good check to keep on myself, because earlier I used to be like, even while doing yoga, how much inhalation and how much exhalation would be optimum. So box breathing helps me to keep a tab. And I just found it very exciting when I coupled the two. So, but like I mentioned, the challenging part is to call upon this tool whenever I'm anxious, and to remind myself that, okay, I know this and I should implement it when I need it the most. So that is one part. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Shrutika, for your sharing your experience with everyone. Thank you, Arpita ma'am, for the breath facilitation. Now, I think now we have some idea about ways to cope with anxiety. And we also have some idea about one of the techniques, which is, sorry, just a second. Okay. Yeah, some of the techniques of coping with anxiety. So now we'll pick up questions which were in the chat box and which we received from the participants before. So one of the most common questions which keep coming up was about negative emotions during anxiety episodes or whenever you are anxious. So the first theme of these questions would be that how to deal with recurring negative emotions, how to maintain positivity. So over to our experts here.
So, Avisha, the theme is how to get away from negative emotions and how to retain positivity. That's what I think you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So again, from the presentation, from the talk, and from the discussions that we have had, negative emotions are not a threat. The continuum of emotions ranges from negative to positive, where every emotion is normal. So we don't have to replace negative to positive. But what I am thinking about, what I look at it as, looking at negative as positive and looking at it from the perspective of reality. Okay, is it really something which is true? To challenge it in the perspective, in terms of reality. Okay, I am going to fail. Okay, have I failed? What is it telling? Why am I thinking that I'm going to fail? My past experiences, evidences for it, how many times? So rather than to change it to I'm never going to fail, that is a positive perspective that we look at. I'm not going to fail, I'm going to get 100, or I'm going to make it like completely successful, which again makes us become very anxious because I'm telling myself, oh my God, I don't want to fail. So what we help individuals to understand is it is okay to fail. Rather than I should never fail, it is okay to fail. And if I fail, whatever the worst case scenario, I have other ways to also take the next step. It's not the dead end. It's not the eventuality. There are things that I can, options are many. So this is how we look at negative emotions as normal, but to challenge it from the reality perspective, not to change it to positive. I think that's how broadly I can explain this from my perspective.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So I think since we are running out of time, I'll quickly move on to the next question. Just a second. Yeah. So can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'll just announce the question also once. The participant asked, I divide things that worry me into two categories, things I can control and things I can't. It works sometimes, but lately I have zero energy, physical, mental, or emotional, to fix things that are in my control too. The increasing workload is making it worse. What should I do?
So I would like to respond to this. As you said that there were ways of coping that you had in the past, and which seems to be not working as much right now. Maybe because the workload is too much, or maybe because you are too stretched, And sometimes in the entire discussion that we have around mental health, we end up probably, we end up taking away this message that if we are going through something difficult, we are the ones who have to handle it. We are the ones who have to cope with it. We are the ones who have to learn how to navigate difficult situations. And it's our personal responsibility. But it's not so all the time that, if you say the workload is too much, if the environmental stress is a lot, if you are finding your own existing coping mechanisms to not be able to help you as much right now, maybe there is someone you can ask who can share this, of course, they can't work on your behalf, but maybe they can help you, conserve some of the energy which is also, being demanded by other things than, what is more important to you. And maybe someone else can support you. Someone else can, also help you take care of yourself. Give you enough space to feel re-energized so that your known coping mechanisms you have the energy to utilize them. And that's how I see it.
Yeah. Thank you, Arpita ma'am. Shashank also want to say something. So over to you.
So as Arpita said, totally like, I think this this idea of like, I have to do so many things to make it work for myself, it can be overwhelming, right? Like all this therapy and trying to use all these coping skills at one time, it can be overwhelming. So I would say, make the like sort of do prioritizing, where you make a note of what is it that you really need to do and what is it that you think you need to do but you can actually not do it. Like you can make it a less priority. That way it will help you when you are like overwhelmed with like this kind of a workload. And communicate, as Arpita said, right? If you think that workload is too much, it may be too much. So communicate with people who can help you in some way so that it's not overwhelming.
Right. Thank you, Shashank. I personally relate with this advice. Always works, prioritizing things. Sometimes it's completely okay to tell people you're going through something and let go of some work.
True.
Okay. So I think I'll move to the next question quickly. So yeah, this is a participant asked, I'm an epilepsy patient and I tend to connect my anxious behavior to it. I know it is not wrong, but I know it is wrong, but how do I console myself and be a bit normal and confident in general? Are they even closely related?
So I think this participant is telling us that he or she is an epilepsy patient and she or he is anxious, tend to connect my anxious behavior to it. So she gets or he gets anxious because of the condition, right? And I know it is wrong, but how do I console myself and be a bit confident and normal about it? So I think the question has the answer also in it. So here, what we are looking at it is the person has certain condition, epilepsy, which is not easy because anytime anything can happen. That's a perceived threat all the time lingering there. So obviously, to become anxious around this condition is something we see in most of the patients with this specific condition, right? And I think he also or she also understands that I know it is wrong, but how do I console myself? So this is where I think he or she is trying to understand what should I do to feel confident and normal in it, with it. So I think from my perspective, what I look at it as, how do I start doing certain things which makes me feel good about myself, taking my condition into consideration. So which helps me, again, the fear is always there. But how do I start, doing certain things which is in my control, which makes me feel good about myself? Small steps. I mean, although this person understands that, I have been into this condition, that's why I'm anxious, to take small steps which makes him or her believe in her abilities, in her coping mechanism, in their self-efficacy beliefs that, okay, I am able to do this much, which means that I have the ability to feel good about myself. So it's, I think from my perspective, to understand that feeling anxious with this condition is normal, but not to let it be anxious, but to keep trying certain methods, certain small steps to feel, to have that feel good factor about themselves, to achieve small things in every day, so that I know that I'm able to do ABC in spite of my condition. So they are closely related. Anxiety and physical conditions are closely related. It does make a person anxious.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I hope that answers the question to the participant. Another question which I want to add from the chat itself is stomach issues related to anxiety? The participant has asked that their stomach always hurts when they get anxious or before some event of that kind. So is it related, or is it something? It could be something else.
So as I think we have tried to discuss about physical sensations and symptoms, I think from this they should understand if there is no other other diagnosis of any other condition, gastro or any other medical condition, when the person is trying to do some presentation or working on something which is stressful, to have this anxiety symptom, like which is a physical sensation, the stomach ache, that there is a stomach discomfort or stomach ache or anything towards that, it is anxiety symptom. It is something that they need to look at and accept it as anxiety if other tests and diagnosis has been done to rule away any other physical condition.
Okay.
I would like to add into that any part of our physical body, whichever part is vulnerable, so that part of the system breaks first when we feel anxious, when our body imagines or anticipates any kind of threat or any unknown fear. So any part which is already vulnerable, that breaks out first. So if we already have a situation, or let's say if we already have a digestion concern, or we already have some other stomach issue, or our system is already weak, vulnerable, I would rather say, then if we are not addressing our emotions the way we should, or in a healthier way, or we are not sharing, or we are not being able to take help. I'm not saying that we are not doing it deliberately. Sometimes we don't know how to do it. So if we don't find a healthier way to express ourselves or to address our emotions, our body finds another way. And that's how emotions come out. And stomach issues, or let's say sometimes diarrhea, or another, sometimes back pain, knee pain, anything can happen during an anxiety episode. So yeah, you can absolutely relate with it. But I would just give us a suggestion that don't try to feel more bad about it, thinking, oh my god, I have stomach issue, that means it's an anxiety attack. No, sometimes it can be something else also. It can be a combination also. Again, go step by step, one step at a time. Meanwhile, it's like just acknowledging will help, that okay, analyzing and acknowledging that help, that okay, this is what happens, this is how my system, my body helps me to cope up with the overwhelming anxiety. This is my body's response, and that is okay. We all have responses. I'll try to work on it step by step, gradually. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Arpita ma'am, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, a lot of anxiety related physical symptoms that we've talked about today, and the gut, our stomach and gut is actually called the second brain. And why it's called that is because the autonomic nervous system of our body, it just like it regulates our heart rate and perspiration and all of that. It's so through sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. It also has an enteric autonomic system, which handles, or which is very in tune with knowing when the stomach has to start digesting and when it has to stop. So that's again, so when we are anxious and when we perceive danger, a lot of our energy is directed towards defending ourselves, making sure we are safe. And the autonomic nervous system sorts of tells the enteric system that, okay, I don't have energy for you to digest. So, for you to get into that work. And because the energy is not going towards the stomach, we end up having stomach upset. Either it's diarrhea, constipation, pain, churning, all of that, right? And it's the other way around also, that if the body has made that kind of a connection and has, become quite familiar with it, if a person has an upset stomach because they've eaten something bad, and because there already exists an a connection with anxiety, other body responses. That upset stomach can also
We lost your voice, Arpita ma'am.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yeah, now you're, yeah.
Yeah. So I was just saying that it runs both ways. It's anxiety can bring in some.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thanks for that explanation. Actually, this answers my age-old worry every time before going to school to pick up my report card. I used to face this, void in my stomach. So I think that explains it really well. So I think we can move on to next question. Okay, we have covered this physical manifestations, negative thoughts. Yeah, this is a question the participant asked. From my childhood, I have had a nail biting habit, which somehow I managed in 2015 to 2017. But in 2 years, I felt that again, nail biting has gone to the next level. Earlier, I was fixated on one finger, but now I bite all my nails. I even use gloves, but after removing it, I again start biting. I realize I bite more when my thoughts get tangled. So I note down the task, but sometimes I don't realize and I have a finger in my mouth. I feel I need some concrete solutions.
Yeah, I think looking at what this person has been going through, nail biting habit from whatever 2 years, and it's become a habit. I mean, the more she wants to come over it, get over it, it becomes very unconscious. The person starts doing it over and over again, although consciously she or he wants to distract from it. Now, this is something to do with, again, a stress disorder where, I am stressed, and to deal with that stress, automatically, my system is using certain mechanisms to kind of deal with stress. A lot of people like this also get into hair pulling. We call it as trichotillomania. That, whenever I'm stressed, I keep pulling my hair, biting my nails, or plucking my skin. A lot of people also get into plucking skin, and wherever there is a small, they just want to pluck the skin and feel that immediate kind of a relief. I mean, it gives them that relief to deal with that stress. It's a very, automatic coping mechanism to reduce the stress perception. Okay, and this requires some amount of hand-holding help. If it's like constant, continuous, and the person is not able to get over it, to introduce mindful activities, to give them gradual exposure, to help them to use distracting techniques, and to become more aware of the tendency to bite, to become aware of the antecedents before this behavior. So these are some of the techniques we teach, we kind of handhold and help individuals when this becomes like very automatic and not able to break out of it. Because I have a lot of clients coming to me with this hair pulling and skin plucking and even nail biting. So it's not easy. Like, we can tell them stop it, but they're not able to stop. It's not as easy as we think. Why can't they stop? Why can't they just get over it? It looks easy from the third party perspective, but when we put ourselves into their shoe, it is not easy for them to be aware, mindful, and in the present to deal with the stress, but to cope with it using certain mechanisms like nail biting or hair pulling. So it needs a solution, and I think we need to help that person, and he or she should take some concrete help to understand how to break this problem, how to look at it in different perspectives. And I think this is something many of us go through whenever we are into a stress situation or into a stress disorder.
Right. Thank you, Mala ma'am. I think, Shashank also wants to add something. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So apart from what Dr. Mala said, I don't know what is this. Okay. The one thing that could help in this situation is that if you like, you don't have to tell all of your friends. If you trust one of your friends or your family member who you are okay with pointing it out to you that you are doing it again, that may help actually, because it's a habit, right? And you don't even notice till you are in it. So if someone can gently point it out to you, that you're doing it again, then at least you can, yeah, you can stop at that time. I mean, I'm not like this not a alternate to actually seeking help for it, but that can work because, yeah.
Thank you.
Arpita has raised her hand too.
Yeah. Yeah. You are not audible, Arpita ma'am. Yeah, you're still not audible actually. Okay, no problem. You can type in the chat. Yeah. Okay. So should we move to the next question meanwhile? Yeah. So this is also a recurring theme which came up in the questions about relationship between anxiety and social media. Can we have any reflections on this? Any comments?
Yeah. Hi. So there's a direct connection actually in anxiety and social media in so many ways, in multiple ways. So one of the major thing is that if you see somebody who's commenting anything, that person may not be comfortable saying the same thing on your face, especially if it's something criticizing or attacking or trolling. So it has become so easier to attack, troll, or belittle, or demean anyone, disrespect, or most of the times dehumanize anyone. uh, because you're behind the screen, you're not face to face. You don't need to take the, at least that's what we feel, that we don't need to own what we have said, what kind of harm or hurt we have done to another person. So it usually feels that, okay, oh my god, I don't know what is going to happen, especially these days during pandemic, social media, it has digital world, it has become, one side it has helped a lot to create network, to connect, to have that human connection. The other side, it has become a venting out or attacking, dehumanizing platform. It's like enables that kind of dehumanizing behavior. So we are not sure what is going to happen in the next moment, and it's a very unpredictable thing. That unpredictability, that fear of I don't know what will happen, that is directly connected to anxiety. Anxiety also gives us the same feeling, I don't know what will happen. And social media also gives us the same feeling, that I don't know what will happen. The same opinion, same post can give you a viral video or can give you a number of appreciations. Same post, same comment, same video can give you multiple, let's say, criticism, or people trolling, people attacking you. So nothing is sure. What do I do that I remain visible and safe? So as such, it's a very unsafe and unpredictable platform. And anxiety also has the same kind of behavior, that it's unpredictable and it doesn't make us feel safe. So yes, it has a direct connection. And to work on that, we can actually be, I'm going to use the word mindful, which needs detailed understanding, but considering the time, I'm not going to explain more on it, but I'll just say that if we see that if it's not required, if it's triggering my anxiety, then I can take a step back and think, is it really necessary to comment on that? Is it really necessary to get into this discussion? Can I talk to that person directly, or can I just message that person? Or is it necessary for me to see this person's update, or is this page update continuously? This is actually inducing anxiety in me. If the answer is no, that it's not necessary, I would recommend that take a step back and indulge only when it is necessary, only when it feels safe. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jaspreet, ma'am. Actually, I want to add just one line to this that I read somewhere in a book, that the brain region, prefrontal cortex, I think, from where we think about the future, is the same region where sort of anxiety resides in the brain. So they are like very much interlinked, which like really made sense when you talked about it. So, okay. So I think we'll be picking up rest of the questions later. We'll mail you our newsletter where experts will have answered the questions which we couldn't pick up today. So we can move to the closing ceremony of today's session. Just a second. Yeah. So yeah, you can check our website to know more about our recent events and volunteer activities and what all we have been doing. So be sure to check it out. Next is you can check out our newsletter called Psyche Diary, and which has covered some of our recent events, experts' answers to anonymous queries or questions which come up in these kind of events. You will be notified about this newsletter soon, where we will pick up the questions which were asked today, which we couldn't, answer it. So be sure to look it out. You can also check out the newsletter on our website also. Moving ahead, you can feel free to join us, become our community member, be in touch with us, or you can join us as a volunteer also, like I am a volunteer here. So yeah, many other volunteers have joined here. So it's purely based on your interest. We don't have any prerequisites. You can just join us and become a part of our psyche. So feel free to follow us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and keep in touch with our activities. And yeah, you must have found the feedback form in the chat box. Do share your feedback about the event with us. You can still fill the form, anonymous query form, to send us more of your questions, and we'll try to answer them in the best possible way. So you're a great audience. Thank you. Hopefully we'll meet again. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you to all the volunteers who made this happen. Thank you to the audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.